The tension in the room was invisible, but seconds away from exploding. Nobody seated in Studio 1A at ABC's Upper West Side headquarters could have predicted that this particular Thursday morning taping would become the most talked-about moment in daytime television history. The lighting was perfect. The audience settled into their seats with their usual mixture of anticipation and caffeine. The panelists reviewing their notes with practiced professionalism. Everything appeared normal. Everything felt routine. But beneath that veneer of television polish, something dangerous was gathering momentum. A collision course between two vastly different women, two incompatible perspectives, two forces who had circled each other in the media landscape for years but had never directly clashed. That was about to change. The pretense of civility was about to shatter into a million irreparable pieces, and the whole world would be watching when it did. Kim Kardashian sat in the guest chair, her posture immaculate, her makeup flawless under the harsh studio lights that turned ordinary people into washed-out ghosts but somehow made her glow with that particular brand of manufactured perfection she'd spent decades cultivating. She wore a tailored cream suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail that emphasized her bone structure, her hands folded calmly in her lap. To anyone watching from home, she looked confident, poised, ready for another interview where she'd promote whatever project had brought her to this particular couch on this particular morning. But if you looked closer, if you were sitting close enough to see the microscopic tension in her jaw, the way her fingers pressed just slightly too hard against each other, the brief flicker of something cold and calculating in her eyes when she glanced at Joy Behar, you might have sensed that Kim Kardashian had not come here to play nice. Joy Behar, seated at the iconic view table, was equally composed but radiating an entirely different energy. Where Kim projected controlled glamour, Joy emanated sharp, unapologetic wit. She'd been doing this for decades, longer than Kim had been famous, longer than most people in the audience had been watching television. Joy had interviewed presidents and celebrities and criminals and heroes. She'd survived cancellation attempts, public feuds, ratings wars, and every form of criticism imaginable. She was not easily intimidated, and she certainly wasn't going to be intimidated by someone she'd privately considered overrated on more than one occasion. As she shuffled her note cards and took a sip from her coffee mug, Joy appeared relaxed, almost disinterested. But those who knew her recognized the particular set of her shoulders, the way her mouth curved ever so slightly downward at the corners. Joy Behar was locked and loaded, and she had questions that weren't on the approved list. Before we go any further, before this situation spirals completely out of control and becomes the kind of television moment that defines careers and destroys reputations, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now for Prime Talk, because what you're about to witness is the kind of raw, unfiltered celebrity confrontation that networks try to bury, that publicists work overtime to scrub from the internet, that people will be arguing about for years to come. Smash that like button and drop a comment telling me whose side you're on in this fight, because I guarantee you, by the time this is over, you're going to have a very strong opinion. This is about to get messy. This is about to get personal, and you are not going to want to miss a single second of it. The segment had started innocently enough. The other panelists had lobbed their gentle questions, the kind of pre-approved, publicist-vetted softballs that celebrities expect when they agree to morning show appearances. Kim had answered with her usual polish, discussing her businesses, her family, her various projects with the smooth confidence of someone who'd done 1,000 interviews just like this one. Everything was going according to script, following the comfortable pattern of celebrity interviews where nobody says anything remotely interesting or true. Then Joy Behar leaned forward, and the energy in the studio shifted like a tectonic plate finding its breaking point. "So Kim," Joy began, her voice friendly but carrying an edge that made Kim's publicist, seated nervously in the wings clutching her phone like a lifeline, immediately tense up and start mentally composing damage control statements. "I want to talk about something you said last week in that interview. You made this statement about how you've worked harder than anyone else in your industry, and that your success is purely the result of your work ethic and business savvy. Do you really believe that?" The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled, tumbling in slow motion toward the floor where it would inevitably detonate and send shrapnel in every direction. The audience, sensing blood in the water with that particular instinct crowds develop when they know they're about to witness something they'll be talking about for years, went perfectly silent. Even the camera operators seemed to lean in closer, instinctively understanding that whatever happened in the next 60 seconds would be replayed on every entertainment news show, dissected on every podcast, turned into 1,000 memes and hot takes and think pieces. Kim's smile remained frozen on her face like a mannequin's, But something changed in her eyes. Something harder, colder, more dangerous. For just a fraction of a second, the mask slipped, and you could see the calculation happening behind those famous eyes. Should she laugh it off? Should she deflect with humor? Should she give the diplomatic answer her publicist would want? Or should she do what every instinct in her body was suddenly screaming at her to do, which was to drop the pretense and tell Joy Behar exactly what she thought of her and her condescending question? "I absolutely believe that," Kim replied, her voice steady but with a new undercurrent of steel that anyone who'd followed her career would recognize as the vocal equivalent of a warning shot. "I've built multiple billion-dollar businesses from the ground up. I work 18-hour days. I've been grinding since I was a teenager. So yes, Joy, I do believe I've worked harder than most people can even imagine." The emphasis on the word joy was subtle but unmistakable, carrying just enough edge to let everyone in the studio know that this wasn't going to be one of those interviews where the celebrity meekly accepts whatever judgment the panel wants to render. Kim Kardashian had not clawed her way to the top of the celebrity ecosystem by being passive or accepting criticism without fighting back. She'd built her empire on the principle that all attention was good attention, that controversy was currency, and that the worst thing you could be in the modern media landscape was boring. And this interview was about to be anything but boring. Joy nodded slowly, as if carefully considering this response, but there was something theatrical about the gesture, something that suggested she'd already decided where this conversation was going, and Kim's answer had only confirmed her trajectory. The studio lights caught the gleam in Joy's eyes, that particular spark that veteran performers get when they know they're about to deliver a line that will land like a bomb. Interesting, because when I think about people who work really hard, and I mean genuinely hard, like break your back in the fields hard, or work 3 jobs to feed your kids hard, I don't typically think of someone who became famous through reality television and family connections. That's not hard work, Kim. That's opportunity and strategic marketing. The gasps from the audience were audible, immediate, visceral. Several people literally put their hands over their mouths as if they could somehow retroactively prevent themselves from hearing what they'd just heard. A woman in the third row grabbed her friend's arm so hard she'd probably leave bruises. Someone near the back let out a shocked laugh that died instantly when they realized nobody else was laughing. The studio had transformed from a controlled television environment into something electric and unpredictable, charged with the kind of tension that makes people's hearts beat faster and their palms start to sweat. Kim's entire body language changed in that moment. Her spine straightened. Her shoulders squared. The polite, media-trained celebrity veneer cracked like glass under pressure, and what emerged underneath was something much more raw, much more real, and infinitely more dangerous. "Excuse me." Kim's voice was quiet, barely above a whisper, but it carried across the studio with devastating clarity. Every microphone picked it up perfectly. Every camera zoomed in to capture the exact moment her professional facade began to fracture. Her hands, which had been folded so calmly in her lap just moments ago, were now gripping the arms of her chair with enough force that her knuckles had gone white. A vein pulsed visibly in her temple. Her breathing had changed, becoming shallower, faster, the physiological response of someone whose fight-or-flight instinct had just activated and was currently voting very strongly for fight. Joy didn't back down. If anything, she leaned in further, sensing that she'd struck a nerve and fully committed to pressing on it with all the delicacy of a sledgehammer. This was Joy Behar doing what Joy Behar did best, saying the thing that everyone was thinking but nobody else had the guts or the lack of filter to actually say out loud on national television. "I'm just saying what a lot of people think, Kim. You were born into privilege, you had connections most people could never dream of, and yes, you worked those advantages brilliantly. I'll give you that. But to sit here and claim you've worked harder than everyone else, harder than single mothers working double shifts, harder than immigrants working in factories, harder than people who actually built something from nothing, that's not just wrong. That's insulting to people who actually know what hard work looks like." The studio had gone so quiet you could hear the ventilation system humming, could hear the software of cameras adjusting their focus, could hear someone's phone vibrating in the audience despite the pre-show announcement to silence all devices. Camera operators stood frozen behind their equipment, fingers hovering over buttons, waiting for direction that wasn't coming because the producers in the control room were just as stunned as everyone else. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Everyone waited for Kim Kardashian's response, knowing that whatever came next would either diffuse this situation or detonate it completely. When it came, her voice was trembling, not with hurt or embarrassment, but with barely controlled fury, the kind of rage that comes from years of being underestimated and dismissed and treated like a punchline. You don't know anything about my life, Joy. Each word was carefully enunciated, sharp as a knife blade. You don't know what I've been through, what I've sacrificed, what I've built. You sit here in your comfortable television job, making jokes and judging people, and you want to lecture me about hard work. You want to diminish everything I've accomplished because you don't approve of how I became famous. Joy's eyebrows shot up, not with offense but with something closer to vindication. She'd been doing this long enough to know when she'd gotten under someone's skin, and Kim Kardashian's skin was currently about as thick as tissue paper. I'm not diminishing what you've built, Kim. I'm questioning your narrative. There's a difference between being successful and being self-made. You've never been self-made. You've been brilliantly marketed by your family, and you've capitalized on opportunities that were handed to you. That's not the same as working your way up from nothing. Handed to me. Kim's voice rose now, that carefully cultivated control starting to slip like sand through clenched fists. The audience leaned forward collectively, sensing that they were watching something unprecedented, something that would be replayed and analyzed and debated for months. You think opportunities were just handed to me? You think I didn't have to fight for every single thing I've achieved? You think building a billion-dollar shapewear company is easy? You think managing multiple businesses while raising 4 children is something that just happens because of good marketing? Joy spread her hands in a gesture that managed to be both dismissive and infuriating. I think you had advantages that 99% of people will never have, and I think pretending otherwise is dishonest. Your mother managed your career. Your stepfather was an Olympic champion. You had money, connections, and a platform before you ever started your first business. That's not a criticism of your intelligence or your work ethic. It's just a fact. A fact. Kim practically spat the word, her voice dripping with contempt. The camera operators were getting footage that would be worth its weight in gold, every angle capturing the raw emotion flooding across Kim's face. You want to talk about facts, Joy? Here's a fact. I've created thousands of jobs. I've built multiple companies from the ground up. I've used my platform to advocate for criminal justice reform and help get people out of prison who were serving unjust sentences. What have you done besides sit behind this desk for 20 years making snarky comments about people who are actually out there doing things? The audience gasped again, but this time there was a different quality to the sound, not just shock, but a kind of horrified fascination. This had gone beyond a simple disagreement. This was personal now. This was 2 women who clearly had fundamental contempt for each other, and all pretense of professional courtesy had just been incinerated in the blast radius of their mutual disdain. Several audience members exchanged wide-eyed glances with their neighbors. A producer in the control room was frantically gesturing to the director, unsure whether they should cut to commercial or let this train wreck continue to unfold in all its spectacular ugliness. Joy's expression hardened, her jaw tightening in a way that suggested Kim had finally landed a blow that actually stung. Her eyes narrowed, and when she spoke again, there was steel in her voice that hadn't been there before. Oh, so now we're comparing resumes. Okay, let's do that. I've been a comedian, a writer, a producer, and a talk show host for longer than you've been in the public eye. I've worked my way up through a male-dominated industry without the benefit of a famous family or a reality show. I've earned my seat at this table through talent and persistence, not through calculated publicity. Calculated publicity. Kim's laugh was harsh, bitter, completely devoid of humor. It echoed through the studio like broken glass scraping across concrete. That's rich coming from someone whose entire job is talking about other people's publicity. You've made a career out of commenting on people who are actually relevant, actually interesting, actually doing something with their lives. You're a professional spectator, Joy. You watch from the sidelines and critique people who are actually in the game. The venom in Kim's voice was palpable, poisonous, seeping into every syllable. The audience had gone from gasping to dead silence, the kind of profound quiet that descends when people realize they are witnessing something genuinely ugly, something that's crossed a line from entertaining conflict into actual hostility. This wasn't playful banter anymore. This wasn't even a heated debate. This was 2 women who genuinely disliked each other, and every word was soaked in years of accumulated resentment and judgment and mutual contempt. Joy leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, and there was something almost satisfied in her expression, as if Kim's attack had confirmed everything she'd ever thought about her. You know what I think, Kim? I think you came on this show expecting to get soft questions and free publicity, and now that someone's actually challenging you, actually asking you to defend your narrative instead of just nodding along and congratulating you for being rich and famous, you can't handle it. You can attack me all you want, But it doesn't change the fundamental question. Do you really, honestly believe that your success is solely the result of hard work, with no acknowledgement of the massive advantages you started with? Kim stood up. The movement was so sudden and unexpected that it startled everyone in the studio, including the camera operators who scrambled to adjust their framing. She didn't storm off, not yet, but she stood there, towering over Joy in her expensive heels, her whole body vibrating with barely suppressed rage. Her chest was heaving with the effort of controlling her breathing. Her hands had clenched into fists at her sides. Every muscle in her body was taut, coiled, ready to spring. The audience collectively held its breath, genuinely unsure what was about to happen next. "Let me tell you something, Joy," Kim said, her voice low and dangerous, each word carefully measured and laden with fury. "You don't get to tell me what my life has been like. You don't get to decide what counts as hard work and what doesn't. You've never built a business. You've never had to prove yourself in an industry that constantly tells you you're not smart enough, not serious enough, not worthy of respect. You've never had to deal with people like you, people who make a living tearing down others to feel important." Joy's eyebrows shot up, and she leaned forward, matching Kim's intensity. "I've never had to prove myself. Are you kidding me right now? I've been in this business since before you were born, fighting for every opportunity in an era when women in comedy were told to go home and have babies. Don't lecture me about proving myself, Kim. I've earned everything I have through decades of work, not by being born into the right family and knowing how to work a camera." The tension in the room had reached a breaking point. It felt like the air itself might shatter. The other panelists sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let this play out. The audience was riveted, unable to look away from the collision happening before their eyes. This was no longer an interview. This was a full-scale war, and neither woman was willing to back down. Kim's voice dropped even lower, becoming almost a growl. "You know what your problem is, Joy? You can't stand that the world has changed. You can't stand that there are new definitions of success, new ways to build influence and power that don't fit into your narrow, outdated view of how things should work. And most of all, you can't stand that someone like me has succeeded in ways you never could, using methods you don't understand and don't respect." Joy stood up now too, refusing to let Kim have the physical advantage of height. They stood there, separated by just a few feet of studio space, two forces of nature about to collide. New definitions of success. Is that what we're calling it now? I call it the dumbing down of achievement, the celebration of fame for fame's sake, the elevation of narcissism to an art form. You want to talk about success. Real success is building something that matters, creating work that has value beyond your own image. For a moment, nobody was sure what Kim was going to do. Walk off. Lean across the table. Actually lose control completely? The possibilities hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. The studio had become a pressure cooker, and everyone could feel it was about to blow. Kim's publicist in the wings had her phone pressed so hard against her ear that her knuckles had gone white, already making frantic calls to her crisis management team. "You know what, Joy?" Kim's voice had gone quiet again, but it was the kind of quiet that precedes thunder, dangerous and electric. "I'm done with this conversation. I'm done pretending that your opinion matters to me. I'm done sitting here while you try to diminish everything I've accomplished because you can't stand that someone like me, someone you clearly think is beneath you, has achieved more success, more influence, and more impact than you ever will." Joy's eyes flashed with something hot and immediate. Achieved more? By what metric? Social media followers? Because if we're measuring success by substance, by actually contributing something meaningful to the world beyond selling products and posting photos. "Don't you dare," Kim cut her off, genuine fury bleeding through every word. "Don't you dare lecture me about substance. You don't know about the work I've done on criminal justice reform, the actual people I've helped get out of prison, the families I've reunited. You see what you want to see, a reality TV star, because it fits your narrative, because acknowledging that I've actually accomplished something meaningful would shatter your entire worldview. I'm simply pointing out the obvious reality that you seem determined to ignore." Joy shot back, her professional facade cracking. "You were born on third base and you act like you hit a triple. That's me being honest in a way that apparently nobody in your carefully controlled bubble ever is." Kim's hands were shaking now. "Honest. This is you being cruel, Joy. This is you punching down because it makes you feel relevant. You've built a career on being mean, on tearing people down, and you dress it up as honesty. But we both know what it really is." "And what's that?" Joy's voice was cold, challenging. "Jealousy," Kim said, and the word detonated like a bomb. You're jealous that someone younger, someone you don't respect, has achieved the kind of success you've never had. You're jealous that I'm more famous, more relevant, and that 20 years from now, people will still remember my name while yours fades into obscurity. The studio erupted with gasps so loud it was almost a roar. Joy's face flushed red. Jealous of what, exactly? Your manufactured celebrity? I don't want what you have, Kim. I wouldn't trade places with you for anything. And then Kim did what nobody expected. She reached down, unclipped her microphone, and dropped it on the chair. No dramatic exit line. No final speech. Just turned on her heels and walked off the set with her head held high, the clicking of her heels echoing through the devastating silence. Joy sat back down, picked up her coffee mug with a trembling hand, and looked directly into the camera. Well, she said, her voice rough, I guess we touched a nerve. The aftermath was immediate and catastrophic. Before Kim had even left the building, clips were flooding social media. Within minutes, Twitter exploded. Within an hour, it was trending worldwide. Team Kim, Team Joy, the View fight. The footage spread like wildfire across every platform, impossible to contain. Entertainment news shows interrupted regular programming to play it on loop. The debate erupted everywhere. Team Kim versus Team Joy, millions weighing in on who was right, who crossed the line first. Twitter threads stretched hundreds of tweets long. Instagram flooded with memes. TikTok creators posted reactions, each racking up millions of views within hours. Think pieces appeared before the day ended. Major publications analyzed what it meant for feminism, celebrity culture, generational divides, the changing definition of success. Some defended Kim's right to define her narrative. Others applauded Joy for asking hard questions nobody else would. The View issued a carefully worded statement within 3 hours, something diplomatic about respecting different perspectives. Kim's publicist released a statement painting her as the victim of an ambush interview. Joy refused to comment at all. By morning, every major outlet covered the story. Morning shows, late-night hosts, cable news panels, everyone had an opinion. The confrontation had transcended entertainment news and become a genuine cultural moment. And through it all, neither woman backed down. No apologies. No reconciliation. They'd drawn their lines, and the world watched them do it. So now it's your turn. Drop a comment and tell me, who was right? Was Joy out of line, or asking necessary questions? Was Kim justified in walking out, or did she overreact? Was this a genuine clash of perspectives or just two egos colliding? Subscribe to Prime Talk for more explosive celebrity confrontations you won't see anywhere else. The View will never be the same. Kim and Joy will never share a stage again. And you just witnessed the moment that changed everything. Comment below, share this video, and let the world know where you stand.